Okay, welcome. If you're just joining us, this is 95.1 Nigeria Info, your number one talk station for all conversations, passionate and trustworthy. It is Tuesday here on the couch. It's 11:05 p.m. On the show, we like to do what we call on the couch, which is our therapy sessions. We have people bring issues that they're trying to deal with, challenges that they're facing, some things are just bugging them and are just troubling them, and they're not quite in their optimum mental space. And we bring our therapists here to sit with them and then have conversations. And we've been having for the past Tuesdays, Coach Mayzy with us in the house. Coach Mayzy is here this evening. He is a certified premarital counselor and a coach as well. And so we like to get into some of all of these conversations. All right, Coach Mayzy, good evening to you. Let's have you unmute your mic so that we can hear you. Good to have you here, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, good evening. It's always a pleasure
Yep.
to be here.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. So let's just get straight into the conversation. And Coach Mayzy, today's topic is a very interesting one. There's this thing that people do. Sometimes it's by virtue of, situations, circumstances. You see it with married couples. Sometimes it's not that common, I think. And then you see it with people who are just starting out a relationship and they somehow are having, or they're in a relationship with someone who's thousands of miles away from them. This phenomenon, I like to call it that, of a long distance relationship. And this evening we're going to be talking about dealing with long distance relationships. I know when we use the term dealing, it sounds like, it's a bit of a problem and that we need to resolve it. But I know that there are quite a number of people who, while some are having issues with it, some are finding ways to make it work. But we're just going to be getting into that conversation on the couch this evening. And it's going to be an interesting one. So let me say thank you once again for being here with us this evening. And then I'm going to let you get into it because nobody has... Well, I wouldn't say nobody. Between both of us, you have way more information on some of these things in the course of your coaching and your counseling with people. So let's talk long-distance relationships this evening. Over to you, Coach Mayzy.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for the opportunity. It's always something I look forward to. I'm always excited to share on matters of love, relationship, marriage, and the family. Okay, so the subject matter for today is a real one. It's a classical one. It's very timely. It's very relatable. Okay, basically, long distance relationship, like I was saying in one of the sessions we had earlier, is something that is here to stay. It's one of those concepts that the name already defines it. So two people are in an intimate relationship or a romantic relationship, and then they are physically separated by distance. They are geographically far away from each other, and then it becomes difficult for them to see each other physically, all right, because of that distance. So basically that's what it is. It's a long distance. Now, whether this distance is within the same state, or it's intrastate, or it's interstate, or it's inter-countries, or continent, whatever the case, so long as there is a difficulty in having regular physical meetings or interactions, then it's a long-distance relationship.
Did I just hear you classify long-distance relationships based off of difficulty?
And I said it's something that is here too.
Did you hear me, Coach Mayzy?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Did you just
it was a bit low.
Did you just classify long distance relationships based off of difficulty? You said as long as there's a difficulty, then it's a long distance relationship. Did you just say
there's a difficulty in physically coming together?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was what I said.
Okay.
So long as there's that difficulty, and it's not something you can't just wake up and say I'm going to see my partner, or you typically have to plan for it. because beyond the distance, many times there's also logistics you have to consider. Sometimes it's the cost. All right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's also maybe you have just a short holiday, or there's going to be this public holiday or this long weekend, and you say, okay, we have to plan towards it. It's not something you can't put in place, or meeting tomorrow, or hanging out over lunch. No.
Okay.
All right. So when there's that difficulty, then it's a long distance relationship, especially when there's a geographical distance between the two partners.
Okay.
Do I go ahead?
Oh yeah. But let me just hold on. Let me make it sort of easier for you. But first and foremost, if you're listening in, we are also streaming on Facebook and YouTube, right? So you can listen in, and you can also listen in on the app. Just download the Nigeria Info app on your Google Play Store, iStore, and you're good to go. In case you need to turn off your radio for some reason or the other, which I don't advise that you do. But anyway, Nigeria Info Abuja is where you can find us on Facebook and YouTube. All right, so let's come back to Coach Mayzy. Coach Mayzy, I have some statistics here that say that when it comes to these things, long distance relationships, that you only have about 40% of people who engage in long distance relationships that actually are able to make it work. Let's start from there. Do we have more cons than pros, and should we even encourage long distance relationships at all?
Very good questions. Just like every other concept around relationship, yes, there are pros and there are cons. I wouldn't say if there are more pros than cons, or cons than pros, would entirely depend on the couple.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, it will entirely depend on the couple, because I don't want to pitch long distance relationship as though it is a disadvantaged situation. No, it's not. To a very large extent, like I was saying earlier, these are realities people have to deal with. Let's talk about some of the causes, for example, just before I talk about your question.
Great.
There are very genuine
Coach Mayzy? Oh dear. Coach Mayzy, if you can hear me, something about your network. You're not coming across clear. Oh dear. All right. As it happens with technology, sometimes we do get to experience some challenges. Coach Mayzy, maybe consider leaving the meeting and then coming back. Let's see if we can sort out your audio, because it's not clear at all. Coach Mayzy was talking about causes, why people get into long distance relationships, and I really want him to get into that conversation. Here's hoping that he's able to, join back in. And let's hope it's not my own network. Anyways, so just before he joins in, let's see. There is beauty in every type of relationship, as a matter of fact. And Coach Mayzy was saying, when it comes to pros and cons, it really depends on the couple. What do they want? What are they? What are their ultimate goals when it comes to their relationship with each other? So many opinions on long distance relationships, and really a lot of these come based off of people's experience and studies, right? I give an example. One of the challenges, I don't think a lot of people that get into long distance relationships are in it intentionally. A lot of the time, well, more often than not, they don't get into these relationships intentionally. I think situations just happen, circumstances just bring it about, and then they have to deal with the realities. I do not know that people just wake up and say, okay, look, maybe initially when you meet a person, they're, say I'm in Nigeria and the person is in the US, and you start to build a relationship, you start to form connections, and then love happens. And at the end of the day, it's like, oh, okay, I think we can do something about this. But then you don't see them maintaining that idea of a long distance relationship unless they absolutely have no control over it. Whether it is that the person is outside the country and you're here, you want to be able to say, okay, how soon can we, meet up? How soon can we get this? How soon can we make sure that we are in the same space as quickly as possible, right? So I don't see a lot of people getting into this intentionally, but I think Coach Mayzy is back. I think so. Yes, Coach Mayzy is back. Okay, let's see if he can.
Okay.
There we go.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Coach Mayzy. Welcome back. Can you hear me?
Thank you very much.
There we go.
I hope this doesn't happen again.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I have you on both devices. Which is your primary device?
Okay.
Let's use that one.
Okay. I think it's echoing now.
Oh, technology! Don't do this to me. Okay, so we have Coach Mayzy joining us virtually on Zoom, and that's why we're trying to sort out this issue right now. Okay, Coach Mayzy, I'm going to need you to. Okay, there we go. I think Coach Mayzy is back now. All right, so let's talk.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me right now?
Fantastic. Oh, thank God. Welcome back. Okay, so you were talking causes, and I was saying I don't know that people typically decide to get into a long distance relationship and maintain a long distance relationship intentionally over time. But let me hand it back to you. Let's. Why do people do this in the first place?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, truly, I don't think people would just set out from the beginning to say they want to do long distance, right? Things happen. Life happens.
Yep.
Sometimes it's educational reasons, sometimes it's occupational reasons, sometimes you're just tired, you want a change of space, sometimes, just looking for greener pastures and stuff like that. But then there are still relationships that start off originally as a distance relationship. Okay? Mm-hmm. And no thanks to online dating right now. Someone can be in one part of the world, meet somebody in another part of the world, they start talking, they start vibing, they start feeling a chemistry, and they say, okay, we're in love. All right. Now that one is a different conversation because there's a whole lot of concern around that, especially with matters of safety and verification. How are you sure who exactly you're talking to, right? So that's a different conversation. But I just wanted to say that there are some relationships that originally start out as a distance relationship.
True.
I just want people to know that it's not out of place. It's not a bad kind of relationship. It's not an unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Yeah, these things happen. All right. Sorry, in the course of juggling here and there, I think I forgot the last question you asked me.
We're talking about causes.
Yeah, no, I've spoken to the causes. Where you asked about, where you mentioned the statistic about just 40% of them working, and then you asked, was it the pros and cons? Was that what you asked?
Yes. So I talked about the fact that there seem to be more pros than cons, and you said it depends on the couple.
Yes,
when he talks, when we're talking pros and cons.
Yes, and that's because, like I've always established, the quality of any relationship depends on the quality of the persons in it. All right? No relationship is good or bad just by itself. The relationship will always take the pattern, the nature of the people in it. Right? So if we're talking about two wholesome individuals who are mature, who know how to make things work irrespective of the distance apart, then it's definitely going to work. All right? But then, unfortunately, there are so many issues around relationships. No, there are so many. There are attachments. There are people who are already intimate with themselves, and then one partner has to be away, and then you're wondering that you're not here, who's going to hold me? The reins are here, weather for two, those kind of things. And then, so generally, I like to say that there are some people that long distance relationships will not work for. That's the truth. Because it takes a whole lot of high level of maturity and discipline. Okay, there are people it won't work for. There are people who will struggle terribly with long distance relationship. And maybe I should try and do a very quick profiling of some of those people.
Yes, please, go
so
ahead.
that if you find yourself there, you already know from the beginning that this is not the kind of thing I should be thinking of, because there will be issues. Do you understand? Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Because right now, you're not in the same physical location with your partner. Even when you guys are in the same location itself, there are people who have serious issues with insecurity, issues with trust. Do you understand?
Communication.
And many times, communication. Many times these issues might not just be because your partner is really doing something. Because, I mean, like I was saying, there's so many issues around relationship. Many of them stemming out of the trauma and the dysfunction that people experienced in their own homes growing up. All right?
Yeah.
So every time you see issues of insecurity, issues of manipulation, control, issues of clinginess, issues of excessive attachment, and validation seeking and codependency. You see, every time you see those things, ultimately, it boils down to very fundamental issues or dysfunctions experienced by those individuals in their upbringing. Okay, maybe in one of these sessions, one of these days, we can talk about that more extensively. But the bad thing is that a lot of people don't even understand that what they are struggling with in their relationship is no fault of their partner. Rather, it is something that they have to deal with within themselves. Things that have happened in their past, experiences they have had or not had, all right, that have now influenced the way they perceive life, the way they view life, and the way they respond to their partners. You see, so I was saying that there are some kind of people that will not be able to do long distance relationship, and for obvious reasons. So let me see if I can profile some of those people. While I'm at that, I just remember something that I like to ask people who say, long distance relationship is not for me. I asked them, I said, okay, why can't you do long distance relationship? If there's a purpose in that relationship, and the purpose, for example, is marriage. Let's say you guys are not married, you're planning for marriage. All right. If there's a clear purpose and both of you share in that purpose, but something has come up now and one partner has to be away, why does that have to be a threat to the big picture? Why? All right. Another thing I ask them is, what is it that you must do together that is now a problem when one person is apart? Is it communication? Is it hanging out and buying this and, the experiences? What are those things that you have exalted so highly that you're saying, because my partner is not here, then this relationship cannot work? If you look very closely, in many cases, the people who struggle with this the most are people who depend on the physical presence of that partner for validation, for meaning, for their sense of importance, for romantic and sexual gratification, right? Those are the people who are the most affected when that partner cannot be physically present. So again, I was saying I was going to give the profile of those kind of people who this thing will work for. First, people who have trust issues.
Number one, don't even bother.
Where do you want to start from?
Don't even bother.
Where do you want to start from? What is relationship without trust? I've witnessed severally, and this is commonplace in relationships, where one partner calls the other. Where are you? Hey, I'm just, I'm at the office, just talking with some of my colleagues. Which of them is there? You say, well, you don't know them. Okay, put on your video. Turn it around. Who's there? I can hear a guy's voice. If it's a guy calling from the other side, or if it's a lady, I can hear a lady's voice there. Who are the people around you? Are you sure you're in your office? I start seeing all of those things come on. If there is no trust, there is no relationship. You see, but what I'm saying, most importantly, is that people who exhibit those behaviors, don't be quick to flog them or blame them for it. They are dealing with issues that they don't even know about. Yes. So if you have trust issues, long distance cannot work for you. Because how do you want to verify you are a monitoring spirit? You that every time you want to know where Where are you? How are you? Who is there? Where are you sure? Verify. Oh yeah, every phone call has to be video, And then you keep probing, checking, looking for spy apps, looking for ways to, if he says, I'm going to the office, you're checking, is he really going to the office? You're thinking of how to bug their, come on, that's not a relationship. That's bondage, man. You see, so, I mean, if there's trust issues, then forget about long distance relationship because tension will finish you. Oh yes, but you're not there. And you see, unfortunately, people have perfected the act of deceit in relationships so much so that they could be telling you nice things over the phone and just loving up on you, and man, bros or sis is with another guy or another girl digging it out.
And speaking of deceit, Coach Mayzy, if I could just come in there really quickly. We're even talking about, people who are in these relationships that are having these issues maybe before they now finally say get married or something, and then they're in the same space. There are people who have had successfully dated people long distance, but then it appears that when you then finally get into that person's space and you're with them, what you see is like you are getting to know the person all over again, like the person that you spoke to, that you were in a relationship with. Because some of these long distance relationships, they hardly ever get to physically meet until maybe they're married. And it's like you are married and it's like, what did I get myself into? So some people even say this issue of long distance relationships, I may not have trust issues, I may not have communication issues, but they're skeptical about it because they feel like until you are in somebody's face and in somebody's space regularly, you can't ever really get to know a person. What are your thoughts on that?
So to say the truth, even if you live with the person 24/7, you're literally glued to each other's bodies. You go everywhere together. You see, it's a human being you're talking about. You cannot sufficiently know a person because you are even still learning yourself.
Okay.
Right? So another thing is that proximity reveals. That is why it looks like when we're far apart, everything is going well. Of course, all you're doing when you're far apart is just talking over the phone. When you are now together, a lot more is going to be revealed. If this person has a terrible dress sense, you might not feel it when you're talking just over the phone. But then you guys are about to step out and you see one terrible, awful combination. You're like, what? No. Don't change that. You see, proximity is revealing. If this person has a mouth odor, a body odor, you wouldn't know that over the distance. If this person, is the kind who can't, maybe if it's a guy, can't get his eyes off of other ladies when he's on the road, you wouldn't know this over the distance, right? But it takes you guys being close and hanging around and then walking about together, and then you're noticing that, can't you stay focused on where you're going to? Why are you always turning left and right when anything is get passes? You see? So yes, proximity reveals. But what I'm emphasizing is that you can't be waiting to say until I know this person 100% before I commit. And that is why it's important. You see, every time we have this kind of conversation, I always bring it back to self-awareness.
Yeah.
All right. It takes you having a very healthy sense of self to know who you are and then to know what kind of people or persons you can do relationship with. All right.
Okay.
If you're going to the farm, if you're going to the pool to swim, if you're going to the office, where you're going to a very large extent will determine how you will prepare and how you will dress for the occasion and what tools you will take for the occasion. If you don't know who you are first, how would you even know what kind of person will be a good fit for you, right? If you haven't healed from trauma, if you haven't healed from the dysfunction of your upbringing that has now affected your belief system, how would you know if the kind of people that are always around you are good for you or not? Do you understand this?
Yeah.
So because many times, I said at the beginning that the quality of the relationship will always be the quality of the people involved, distance irrespective. All right? So if two wholesome individuals, all right, who have learned how to be open with each other, who have learned the art of communication, who have healed from the trauma of their past and all the heartbreak and all the baggage, who are wholesome, who know how to trust, who know how to be committed and disciplined and stay true and know their boundaries. These are things that I can touch later on in, one after the other. If two individuals like that are far away from each other, it is not a threat to the relationship. Now, let me also say this. I mentioned trust.
Yeah.
Another set of people who cannot thrive in long distance relationship are people who don't know how to define their relationship. Do you know that there are a lot of people who happen into relationship? They we're just cool. We're just cool. We speak every now and then one day we just hung out, and the next day you're calling baby, and you're going darling, and you're going miss you, and you're going bae and boo. What are you people really doing? What exactly are you doing? When you stumble into relationships like that, and you're the kind of person who doesn't know how to properly define what exactly you're doing and what this person really is in your life, that kind of person will have a challenge with long distance relationship. Because what that actually is, there are people who love the idea of love. There are people who love the idea of having someone in their life spend time. These are the people who will get out of one relationship today, next tomorrow they're in another one. Because they just have this fear of being alone. They have this fear of not having anybody around them that they are, cozying up to, or who's making them feel important. Again, these things are mostly dysfunctions, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So people like that who don't know how to define relationship, say, let's just see how it goes. That's not a relationship. Because ultimately, by the time that partner is not around, your feelings, your emotions are actually confused. You don't know whether who know how to trust, who know how to be committed and disciplined, what are we, stay true, where are we boundaries, when are we going there? So there's just confusion all over the place.
Right.
So I always tell people that when you're getting into a relationship, let it be defined. Let it be defined. Of course, I would always recommend, let marriage be the goal. All right, but if you say it's not marriage, I just want somebody just stand by, it's left for you.
Okay.
But let marriage be the goal.
All right.
Okay, so that very clearly you guys can have parameters with which you are evaluating your progress in that relationship.
Okay.
Okay. Another set of people who will have a challenge with long distance relationship are people who easily get lonely. Again, people who have suffered abandonment, people who have had some kind of insecure attachments growing up would fall into this category. Because for them, they always need someone to be around their emotional space. That's where they derive validation from.
So their love language requires you being around physically, so they can touch, hug, cuddle, and all of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you see, and while love language is a nice way to talk about it, many times it's a love trauma, it's a love dysfunction, or it's a love need that they suffered. Yeah.
Okay.
Many times, some people don't know that. All right. There was a need somewhere from their upbringing, from their environment, from their growing up, where they did not have adequate attention, where they did not have adequate affection, where they did not feel seen, they did not feel heard. And then now they are depending on this person who has come into their space to supply that thing to them that they have always craved for. You see? So yes, it just looks like, oh, this is my love language, that's what I want. But many times when you dig deep, it might be that the inadequacy of it from childhood that is actually speaking right now in adulthood. Okay, so people who are easily lonely when their partner is not around, they will have a challenge during a long distance relationship, because for them, it's not just speaking over the phone.
Yeah.
I want you here. I want you here. I want to hold you. I want to touch you. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. And when that person is not there, before long, this kind of people start transferring that affection or that need to somebody else who is physically present. And that's where cheating and all of that starts coming in from. Because that void there, the way they have programmed themselves, or they have been programmed unknowingly, is that I always need someone to be with me. I always need to hold someone. I always need to touch someone. I always need someone to kiss, to caress. I always want to be sexually involved with someone, right? People like that will struggle with long distance relationship. So I could go on and on, but anytime you want to ask or say anything, feel free to interject, right?
Okay.
So these things really go way beyond just the relationship to the individual. Do you understand that?
Okay.
Yeah. So there are also some people who just, wake up by 1 a.m. and put up on their status, "I'm bored. Who's up? Get to gist." Like, come on. What's going on here? You see, I tell people that loneliness, right, is not just the absence of someone around you. Loneliness is mostly the absence of vision and a commitment to something else other than yourself.
So, for example, someone who doesn't have a steady job or a job will always have a lot of time on their hands that would then translate to loneliness, right? Somebody who, what other example can I give now?
So let me help you also.
Okay.
Because they may not even have a job, but they are committed to learning. They have enrolled for courses.
I see.
Do you understand? There are lots of self-paced courses online. There are lots of resources online. Now, this person may not have a job, but has a vision. Something is eating them up. They wake up every day for something. They live for something. Do you understand?
Yeah.
They're always thinking, you're racking your head, you're developing a business concept, you're still conceptualizing, you're still, you are committed to something. Now, whether or not a partner is in your life, if you have a vision, if you're committed to something greater than yourself, trust me, you would need time for yourself. You definitely would need some alone time. You definitely, no matter how in love you are, at some point you want that person to wait so you can walk. So you can, because there's that thing called self-actualization.
Yeah.
No matter how somebody uses love to just baptize you, if deep down that love is stopping you from actualizing your dreams and potential, that is toxic love. And at some point you will have to break away from that if you must live life to the full. You see, so it's not just about not having somebody, it's about what are you filling your emotional space with? What are you filling your heart with? All right. They say that the unhappiest people in the world are the people who are waiting for others to make them happy.
Word.
Oh yeah.
Word.
So if you're that kind of person, that your joy, your peace, your happiness will always depend on what someone else is doing to you, or someone who is close by, someone who is present, then you are not mature enough. You are not the profile for long distance relationship.
Okay.
All right. So,
all right.
I mean,
let me come in there real quick.
Okay.
Let me come in there real quick. So we're talking a lot about the kind of people who should be considering whether they should or should not be in long distance relationships, right? Another thing I think that is a major factor that affects long distance relationship. Now let's look at it in terms of cross country, if that's the word to use. You do have a number of long distance relationships that are okay. So I'm in Nigeria and the other person is in Nigeria as well, but just in different states. That one, to some level, to some extent, is a bit manageable, right? Because even though you have to think logistics, you have to think timing and planning, it's not, and it can be on the same level as someone who is in Nigeria and dating someone who is in Europe,
in another country,
some other part of the world, right? Another thing that plays a huge role in this is the time difference. So I've heard cases where, I've heard of cases where, so because of daylight time and their nighttime, 8 hours, 9 hour time difference, when this person is about to go to sleep is when this person is starting their day or is in the thick of their day. And it's hard to be able to put in the work in that area, because no matter how hard you try, the thing about timing will always affect them. So should people who are in these kinds of situations be encouraged to continue in those long distance relationships, or if they should be if they're encouraged, how do they better manage these things? Because I know that is one of the even more prevalent cases. Those type of cases are the more prevalent ones that you have outside the country, Nigeria, another country. You might even be in Europe, and then this Europe and North America. You have them in different ways. So how do we manage? I just wanted to bring in this category of people as well, so that we can join that to the conversation.
Yeah. So real issues. That's why relationship is commitment. That is why relationship is commitment. If this is the situation you guys have found yourselves in, you have to be intentional. This is the sacrifice that comes with relationship. You have to be intentional about scheduling the calls in those times where you guys can discuss. One person is going to have to be awake when he should have been sleeping. Yes.
Wahala.
So that sacrifice has to be there. Both of you have to know when to sacrifice, and you also have to be flexible with each other. In other words, you can't be getting angry that your partner did not pick when you were calling in your afternoon, which is their midnight. And then you're angry. I called you 5 times. Why did you not pick? What were you doing? Who is there? Do you understand? No, you have to be flexible. You have to be understanding, right? But that communication, sacrifice, and discipline has to be there. But then that will take me to some other point that I forgot to mention earlier. You see, one thing about long distance relationship. Remember before I mentioned that there must be purpose in it.
Yes.
Right? What is the essence of this relationship? Are we planning to get married someday? How soon? When? You see, one thing that makes long distance relationship work is that the duration of this distance has to be clear to both of us.
What does that mean? Duration of the distance. Okay.
Yeah. It has to be temporary. So are we looking at 2 years maximum? Are we looking at 1 year? Are we looking at 6 months, 9 months? It should not be indefinite, because really, if it's indefinite, then come on, you guys are just playing. You're just playing. What are you guys doing? Just tell yourself you're your best friends and cut that thing you call relationship, right? So there has to be a duration that both of you agree with. There has to be a plan at some point that somebody is going to come over to visit the other, or someone is fully migrating to where the other partner is. Do you understand that? There has to be a clear duration. So let's use, for example, people who are separated because of study. Typically, if it's a 1 year advanced course that the partner is doing, you know that after that year, it's either the one who traveled is coming back to the location, or the one who was left is planning to go over and meet the other one. There has to be a clear plan. There has to be a clear duration. All right? These are the big pictures that will keep the commitment going. These are the kind of things you guys will look at and you tell yourself, this is a necessary sacrifice we have to bear for now. It's just 4 months to go. It's just 3 months. You're counting down. Why? Because there's a big picture. So imagine what would happen if it was indefinite. You can't, there's no motivation, there's no hope in sight. Do you understand? So that's one very key thing people must know.
Okay.
That relationship must be purposeful, and then the distance has to be temporal, or the duration has to be clear. We know that maximum the next 2 years, maximum the next 1 year, the next 18 months. That's the case. Maybe it has to be clear, and it should be in the short term. If it's too long, medium term. Do you understand? Yeah, so that you guys don't just get weary of the entire thing, because you're human beings. There is this far you can hold it together sometimes. All right?
Yeah.
So just imagine a case where this guy has promised this girl, oh, I'm going to marry you, everything in my life. In fact, before I travel for my program, I must engage you. Then he gives her a ring. Oh, yeah, with this ring, I hereby tie your life. You must wait for me. 4 years, okay, it's not back. It's still saying I love you from far away. 5 years, 6 years. You know, you are the love of my life. Come on. What's going on there?
Okay.
Right? And then he still says all those nice things, but there's no effort to either bring her over or come back to see her, right? That's a concern. That's a red flag already. Okay, those
All
are the
right.
times where no matter how you try to be hopeful and full of faith, you will start entertaining thoughts. Who else is there that is talking to this guy? Why is he not good for remembering me? What's going on? You start thinking this guy may have just cheated me and moved on. Maybe he's married to someone else there. And because these things really happen, there are people who go like that and then they go get married, maybe because of papers, and then they're still promising somebody here that wait for me, I'm coming, and then because at the end of the day, everything is not always within your control. Things can get out of hand, and then you have one young lady there waiting forever. There are other suitors coming, but she believes in this person. She believes, in this relationship, and then she's telling every other person, please stay away, I beg, I beg. And all those ones are looking. Before those ones too are marrying other people, and then you're still there, and this guy, so come on.
It has to be defined. Yeah. All right, Coach Mayzy. Yeah, let me come in here quickly. First and foremost, you're listening in. You have any thoughts to share regarding maybe your experiences or the experiences of someone you know? Let's know. For you, would you be open to a long distance relationship, or is it a no from you? We're opening up at this point to get contributions from our listeners and everyone else that is viewing, maybe on our social media platforms. But if you want to share, it's 0700 951 0000 or 080 959 74869, or on WhatsApp it's 080 999 30137. I have someone here who sends a message. He says, Dacham Jonathan Mikang says, I'm from Jos Plateau State. Regarding this long distance relationship stuff, I don't want to start something I can't finish unless it's beyond me. I also see you, Yam Yakub Asi from Wisi 2, Damak Ramshak watching from Port Harcourt. I see, what's your name here now? Oof, I lost your name. Someone is asking if Black Coffee is in the studio. No, it's not Black Coffee. My name is Somi. But let's take someone who's calling. Maybe have some thoughts to share on this. Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. How are you, Somi?
I'm fantastic.
Coach, how are you doing?
Coach, can you hear him? He's asking how you doing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I can't hear. I'm listening in on another device and it's a bit delayed.
Okay, let me just go on. Well done.
Okay.
I've been listening.
Yeah,
and,
I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
I joined you today a bit late, but I've gotten a whole lot. I think I've listened for over 30 minutes already.
Okay.
And I apologize to you, Somi, for slipping on you yesterday. It doesn't really happen. It happens once in a while, but these things. I was so tired yesterday.
Okay. Thank you.
But I want to say yes. I love the stuff you've said. It's perfectly true. It's due to the book I've read about 10 Commandments of Relationships. So that book has really helped me a whole lot. And I'm thinking like that book, or probably so much. Anyway, it's your job. But for me, I think I need to be very intentional with anything I'm doing at this moment. So I don't think a long-distance relationship can just work for me, even though I'm not against it. I'm the kind of person that can work with anything that comes. But at this moment, I'm very intentional about anything I want to do. That was why I didn't want to do the shoot your shot on air, because I don't think it's really real for me. You get it. So, but I think people with, like you said, upbringing matters a lot. You get it. So I just want to stop there. But I think for my person now, I think long distance will not work for me, because I want to be very, very practical. Because I know what I want. That was why I was telling you the other day. I know the kind of women that I want in my life. I have to know, because for me, I can be very busy and sometimes I have time.
Okay.
So we can be busy at the same time, and then eventually at the point we can have time for each other. So that's it.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing, King. I appreciate that. Okay, he says it's not for him. For him, he's in a place where he's trying to be intentional, and I don't think he considers a long distance relationship something that is intentional. All right, we also have Dacham Jonathan Mikang, who says long distance relationship to me needs a a ready collective defined system for it to run or for it to succeed. And he goes on to explain. He says, as a pilot, I can't just start to fly a plane without my assistant on it. My assistant needs to be there to remind me, awaken me, checkmate me, control, and assist wherever and whenever necessary without me consciously requesting for it. So it's a no-no for me. Thank you so much. I see you, Thomas Uket. He says he's watching for me, do yard. Thank you so much. All right, Coach Mayzy, we have gotten some responses. We have gotten some feedback. So let's come back to you. I do have a question though.
Okay.
So you have talked about the fact that the duration of the long distance relationship has to be defined, so that the people involved can really, really say, okay, I can work with this, and then for some people it just gives them something to look forward to. That's great. Let me share something that I saw here about somebody who was giving her experience about a long distance relationship. So we mentioned quite a number of things, and this person came with a different perspective. He says, it was really hard for me. One, you can't see them. I can't see my partner when I want to. And I know there's this whole virtual thing and all that, but for me, it's not the same. She also said that long distance relationships are expensive. They're expensive. You have to buy data to be able to facilitate those conversations and all. Sometimes the network too will be adding to its own frustration, and a lot of and for her, she'd rather restrict herself to phone calls, so rather than all those virtual things where you're now struggling with network and all of that. And then there's this thing about confusion, that you can't properly read a person who you're in a long distance relationship with. I think I mentioned something along those lines. You can't know if they're fine when they say they're fine, because a lot of the time their facial expressions don't necessarily, even when you're on virtually, that's if you can even be on with the video call a lot of the time. He said you can't see it, and so it leads to miscommunication. She also said when they fight, it's very, very not fun. When you quarrel with somebody, she said, when I quarrel with somebody, I like to look them in the face and fight with them. But in this case, I can't do that. And making up too is also the same thing. There's something about being able to physically connect with somebody when you're making up, especially after a bad fight and all of that. And, that's one of the things that, you don't get to do. We've dealt with the issue of insecurities, which come up as a result of lack of trust or miscommunication and things like that. And then there's something about just the little things. So you have a relationship that is restricted to phone call, talk when you can talk, try and catch up as much as possible. But there are other little things that make relationships fun and really, really nice to get into, and then you can't do that. So it's like, I hate this thing. I hate this feeling. So this was a feedback that someone shared regarding her long distance relationship and why she really, really wouldn't be getting into it in the nearest future. So let me give it back to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all, everyone who made a comment, person who called in. Let me say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of maturity that we need to be very intentional about in our relationship. And I will explain what I'm saying. So far this conversation had been skewed towards unmarried people. So we're saying that, okay, yes, you're still single, you're not married, and then you have to be apart. Now, some of the people who have said that they can't deal with a long distance relationship, I have a question. When you get married and the office sponsors you for a course for 1 year, and you can't go with your family because your wife is working also, are you going to resign from the company? Say because I cannot be apart from my wife.
They will find a way to include my family needs.
I see what we're saying. So eventually, you can find yourself in that situation. What are you going to do then? So then you see that if all the fundamental things we have been talking about are not in place, if there is no trust, if there's no effective communication, if there's no friendship, if there's no commitment and discipline, if there are no boundaries, where you know that, hey, I'm married or I have a commitment to somebody. I can't be entertaining some kind of conversations. I can't be flirting at will because I have a commitment, right? If all of those fundamental things are not in place, how would you deal with that 6-month course, that 2 months, that 1 year? Do you understand? How would you deal with those situations? So this is why I want people to more like see that what is most important here is that you have the capacity to sustain a relationship if that relationship has to be tried through distance. Because, I mean, you guys could have done all through your premarital years. You were together, everything was cool, you were cozy, you were seeing each other, you were baby cohabiting self, and then now you're married. But then in this marriage, something has to, just imagine that 5 years into the marriage, suddenly one partner now has got a vision for his or her life that he must go and study this course, and this course can only be studied in one other country. Is that going to be the end of the marriage?
No, but let me just pitch in there, because when you're talking marriage, it's a different ball game altogether. And depending on the kind of marriage you have and kind of partner that you're with, there are some things that you would turn down. No, sir. Okay, so for instance, you give an example of maybe a 3-month course, a 6-month course. Can maybe work with that. 1 year may be quite challenging, but anything more than a year. We've had cases where people have had to transfer, or they've had to transfer people from one state to another. And it is expected that whoever your employer is, or whoever is you're working with that is making provision for this kind of thing should understand that you have a family. You understand? So either they are ready to, if they're doing that and they're relocating you, they should know that there's provision for your family to move with you. I know there are some cases where you can't really manage, I get, but it's not even a conversation that should be coming up often in marriages, because, that's very tricky.
So, this is where the intentionality comes in. Because, to say the truth, right, organizations really don't care about you. Oh, I'm sorry to say that, but they really don't care. Many times they care about the bottom line. It's left for you to be able to negotiate your way to what matters. If not, you will keep getting deliverables, and you have to keep meeting up. If you're not able to strike that balance, so why am I saying that? In this case, it may the person involved may now need to be the one to say, hey, you know what, I have a family, I can't be this far apart, I have to travel in at least once in a quarter, or at least once in a year, or twice a year. You have to be that intentional. And then even with your partner, you have to be that intentional, where both of you are arranging that, okay, if this has to be, what is the plan for bridging the gap? You see? So first of all, the duration has to be clear, and then the intentionality to say, okay, while we are apart, who is going to come over? Should I visit once a year or twice a year, or should you come over? It has to be worked out.
Okay.
But these situations can show up. And then what would you do when you find yourself in that situation?
All right, let's see if we can. Right? Yeah, of course. Let's see if we can wrap this up and then just open up the phone lines to have our listeners, contribute to the conversation. I really want to hear about people who have had these experiences before and which one they would rather go for. Of course, Coach Mayzy has been here with us talking about the merits and how, you should know whether you should get into a long distance relationship or not. Anything you want to say in the next 1 minute, Coach, before we open up the phone lines to our listeners?
Okay, fundamentally, it's important that people are true to themselves and to the commitments that they make.
Okay.
All right. It's also important that people are self-aware. It's good that some people already know that, no, this is not something I want to deal with, so I'm not even going to deal. It's good you know that already, so that when the situation begins to present, then you know how to tackle it, all right, and how to mitigate the risks or the concerns, right? So self-awareness is really key, and then being true to yourself and being true to your commitment is also very key, so that distance or no distance, that commitment binds, and then the trust is unwavering, and there's no threat to it, and then that relationship still thrives irrespective of the distance.
Okay. All right, then. We'll be right back after this break. Do stay with 95.1 Nigeria Info. On the Couch continues in a bit.
This is Nigeria Info.